Hi, my name is Karan Jain. I'm the CEO for NayaOne, and I've got here with me Ollie Platt, who's leading our product on the marketplace. So, what happens? So you've seen close to 70 demos between the 2 days, and what happens to the fintechs you're interested in when you go back home? Now, as an ex-banker technologist, I've been where you've been, and what happens is, I think about whether does the fintech do what it says it does. I think about, am I going to have to onboard and go through the full procurement process if I want to find that out? And I wonder if the company's mature or progressed enough, and does it integrate with my core or a product system that's critical. I don't know about you, but that whole thought process gets pretty exhausting for me. And so I thought, okay, what is the impact of that? And the impact of that is, it impacted my digital agenda, and it impacted the capability I couldn't roll out to my customers. So it impacted my customer experience and the capability that I was putting up. Only because the process was stacked against me, and I didn't have the resources to conduct quick proof of concepts to validate these technology providers, fintechs, regtechs, infrastructure. So, we're NayaOne, we're a sandbox as a service, and we help banks and credit unions conduct rapid prototypes and proof of concepts in weeks and days instead of months. Let's have a look at the example. Ollie, fraud is an evolving landscape. I'm in the market for a new IDV solution. What have you got?
All right. So if we're looking for a fraud solution, let's start by putting on a filter for fraud. And let's then dive into some of the ID verification solutions that we've got. So, we've got loads there. Do any take your fancy? Do you know of any?
You know what? I saw on Fido at the last conference, and I heard in my network someone's using them. Can you tell me a little bit more about it?
Yeah, of course. So we can open up someone like Fido, and we can see the different use cases that they're already helping banks and people like you solve. Does that solve your problem? What would you like to test? So typically when I look at a vendor, I want to see the use cases which you've shown me. Then I want to look at, does it actually do? Because there's behavior in the market that everyone says they can do everything. The second thing I want to test is, or look for, is are there any competitors that give Fido a good run? And thirdly, is it going to work with my core? So can you get me there? Okay, so let's break that down. So the first thing was, what can they actually do? Do they have the tech that's going to allow them to do what they claim? We've integrated all the providers that are on the marketplace, so we've got access to their tech, and we can actually go in and actually see their API documentation and access their APIs straight away. So at this point, we're going, okay, fantastic. Hopefully, we know their features, but that doesn't really necessarily answer whether these features are going to work for you, or the first couple of questions. So let's have a look now at what we're going to need to do to run that proof of concept. The first thing we're going to need is ultimately some data. So maybe some data that's going to match that core, because we're going to ultimately want some PII to evaluate that core. So let's go in and search for some core data. And in here, we can see we can access some PII core data that's entirely synthetic, and we can pass over to these fintechs to evaluate them. And now let's run a side-by-side comparison. So there were a few fintechs there that we saw, new on Fido. Maybe there's a few more that we want to have a look at. So we can come in and actually look at that side-by-side comparison. So if we load this up, we can actually see that we've looked at 4 different vendors. And we've gone as far as actually looking at both their user interfaces, but we can actually click in here. And if we were to do so, we can actually see that we've not only used their APIs and used that data that we looked at before, but we're actually going as far as to testing it with the relevant APIs, the relevant connections of our existing core. So we can go, is this going to integrate? Can we entirely de-risk that integration? And can you be confident that this is going to go to production?
Sounds good. So what you've done there is you've been able to show me a list of vetted IDV providers. You've been able to run a side-by-side comparison for me, and you've been able to de-risk my integration by testing with relevant fintechs. Okay, And what's that?
So what we're now looking at is actually, this is the result, right? You need to be able to take this inside of your organization and explain why you tested it and why you've chosen who you've chosen. So in this case, actually, Jumio's turned out the best. They've been the best fit according to your features that you require, your core. They're going to perform best for you.
Okay, thank you. And just to qualify, we're not suggesting that Jumio is a better vendor than the other three. This is for illustration purposes only, based on the specified criteria. But what it does do is it not only helps the tech and product teams to evaluate the product at a deep level, but it also helps people who are putting the business case together to then take it inside the bank and the credit union and have proof that we ran these tests and actually this vendor is more suitable. And be able to do this in weeks and not be able to take months and months to do that. So that's on the fraud side. On the emerging technology side, what are you seeing?
Yeah, so in the emerging technology space, shockingly, all of our customers are looking at generative AI. So, as I'm sure is a lot of companies talking about it here. But we can go in here and actually go back to those fintechs, and we could say, actually, instead of looking at fraud, I want to look at generative AI now. And we can see that there are already 48 providers who are integrated you could gain access to tomorrow. Or you could say, actually, I'd like to work with someone else, and we can ultimately onboard them and bring them in a week.
Thank you, Ali. And then the purpose here is basically you can bring different generative AI infrastructure, you can bring applications, and you can bring tooling in a safe, secure way to build out your generative AI strategy without putting the bank or the credit union at risk. So, and just to wrap up, we're NayaOne, we're a sandbox as a service. We accelerate your proof of concepts. Our mission is to bring bank, credit union, and the fintech side together so we can serve our customers better. Thank you very much.